This is the same administration who said after 13 servicemen and women were murdered by ISIS in Kabul, that they're proud of how we exited Afghanistan. Lloyd Austin said, we are proud of this operation. I don't expect any acts of honor or competence from an administration that isn't willing to go to Arlington Cemetery for the 3rd anniversary of the killed in Kabul.
All right, guys, what a day. Never boring, is it? Trump held a massive press conference today. His son, Don, landed it in Greenland. We've got it all covered for you. Plus, Seb Gorka is here today. Does not disappoint, as always. He is officially getting off the radio and heading into the administration. But a lot to break down with him about these threats that occurred over the holidays. The one in New Orleans, the one in Vegas out there in the Cybertruck. A lot of rumors going out there. I want to get Seb's take on that, plus all things China, TikTok. I mean, we got a lot to cover with Seb Gorka. Tomorrow, Congressman Derek Van Orden, by the way, he'll talk Greenland with him, national security threats. Obviously, he's a former Navy SEAL. A lot to do that. Big panel on Thursday. And then the thing is, we're going to have Matt Laszlo on Friday. We're going to talk UFOs. And I'm telling you, you're going to want to see this. There's a lot out there with these drones, unmanned flying objects, whatever we're calling them now. But like, what does the government know? What do we not know? A lot to get to with Matt, so we'll talk about that. And then I've mentioned this before, but my newsletter drops today, Tuesdays and Fridays. It's free, although I really welcome it's a cheap date. If you want to sign up and be a VIP member, you get access to all the inside baseball stuff. I put a lot of my additional comments and photos in there. You can always go for free though and subscribe. I've got information on getting jobs in the administration today, the Trump-Vance link to that, information on the swearing in, the balls, you name it, all that kind of stuff is all in there. So, like I said, I can't get you a job. I can't get you into a ball. I can't get you inaugural tickets, but I can tell you where to go and all the right links. And then it's kind of on you as well. So a lot to get to today. I want to get to Trump's press conference in a minute, but man, Mark Zuckerberg, you would think this guy is MAGA. It's not Meta, it's MAGA. Unreal what he has done, but it's like the sucking up just knows no bounds, right? We talked about this. He gave $1 million to the inauguration. Okay, that's good. Well, now he dropped a video this morning and he's like, hey, suddenly we're not fact checking anymore. We're big supporters of free speech and our content moderation team, we're moving it to Texas from California. Like, dude, okay. I gotta just, I'm welcome you. Come on over, brother. The water is warm. But let's give it a break. I mean, he doesn't believe this crap. The guy realizes that he needs to suck up to Trump and that the MAGA movement was right and that they went too far. Now, I'm glad that they're doing this. Don't get me wrong. They're getting rid of these fact checkers, which is just a bunch of leftists trying to censor right-leaning speech. That's what it is. And they're finally admitting they're wrong because America said so. And they're losing market share and they're about to get regulated. So, but all that being said, hey, I'm fine with it. If this is what happens, I like to see this happening. So anyway, a lot to break down there today. Also, the House is in session. They're passing this Lake and Riley Act. I think it's important. You guys remember she was the nursing student that was killed by illegal, that had a criminal record, that was allowed to stay in this country. Senate's doing it too. It's a big sign of symbolically what they're doing first. And it shows that the border security and addressing people in this country illegally and criminals is a big priority. And I'm glad they're doing this. But it also shows that there's a lot that can get done on the agenda as Trump works this whole reconciliation bill. So keep that in mind. So anyway, I want to get to this Trump presser in a second, but I will say that it's important to note there's a lot that can happen. And obviously I want to talk about Don Jr. in Greenland because this is also important. Before I do that, you know, a lot of us have a first aid kit or a fire extinguisher in our house. And if you don't, you should, right? Because that makes sense. But I also have one of these. This is a life vac. Now, if somebody were to start choking, God forbid, are you ready to help them? Because with a light vac in your house, you can be a hero in the event of a choking accident or incident. It's being used by police, first responders, There's like restaurants and cruise lines. Everyone's getting one now because it's so simple and easy. You place it over, you can literally dislodge what's in the throat, what's causing the choking incident. And so if you don't have one, think about getting one now. Go to lifevac.net, lifevac, VAC, lifevac, one word, .net. And the cool part is, God forbid something happens, they will replace this part, the part that goes over someone's mouth, in an event of a choking incident for free. They'll also send one to your kid's school if they don't have one. But this is something that you're going to be happy you have in your house next to your fire extinguisher or your first aid kit if an incident occurs. It's easy to use. Anybody can do it. And it makes sure that you are ready in the event of anything. So please don't get caught without one. Order this now. Go get your own at LifeVac, VAC, lifevac, one word, .net. Don't wait another minute, because truly a life could depend on this. All right, as I said, Don Jr. and a team of Trump folks landed the Trump Force One plane in Greenland today. I've been saying this for a while, since that big episode we had with Eric Prince right before Christmas. I'm trying to remember the date there. They were a lot closer than a lot of us may have known. And so I say that because I actually think that as much as the left and some of the folks mock this, this could be a very real thing. We already have a military base over there. And Don's making the case to these folks, who would you rather have us protect? You or Denmark when it comes to Russia and China? A lot of rare earth minerals there in Greenland. And strategically, this would be huge for us. It makes sense. You remember Hawaii, Alaska, Guam is a strategic outpost for us down in the Pacific. This could be huge for us as a place to continue to stage. And I think the people there are increasingly open to it. The Prime Minister of Denmark, which oversees Greenland right now, said Greenlanders will decide what happens to Greenland. And I thought that was telling. She didn't say Denmark will decide, which theoretically should be the answer. She said Greenlanders. And I think Greenlanders, based on the reception that Don Jr. and his team got today, probably want the U.S. involved. Makes more sense. Economically, strategically. I'd rather be part of the U.S. than Denmark. No offense. I'm not trying to be anti-Denmark here. But I'm just saying it makes more sense. So then the president, it's like that in itself should have been news. Right? And what happens? He gives a press conference today. And that, you can't overlook that. He talked initially, as he did, remember he held one a few weeks ago. He started this off with this big investment in the U.S., $20 billion. I mean, think about that. He already had SoftBank CEO come over. These guys are begging to just sit down with him and say, hey, how much can I invest in you? This is the difference in leadership, guys. Think about this. Trump's talking about rebuilding America, making America they're talking about putting money in to the United States, manufacturing, making jobs. This is good for us. And I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. Let me show you, kicking it off, what he talks about, what is said.
And I'm thrilled to announce today that DAMAC will be investing at least $20 billion over a very short period of time into the United States, and they may go double or even somewhat more than double that amount of money.
All right, that's money coming into our economy, creating jobs. That's amazing. He went on, as Trump does, because, and he talks about the lawfare. Now, think about this for a second. Jack Smith is a whole separate story, right? And then you got the Judge Marchand thing. Jack Smith gave up the cases, and he's still potentially going to put out this report on him. But for now, let's focus on what's going on in New York. This hush money case, which is what the media say, it's a joke. You could be the biggest Trump hater in the world, but the bottom line is it's a joke, okay? This is a manufactured case. Think about all the stories you hear about going on in New York. People are getting killed, and they are manufacturing a case against Donald Trump. The statute of limitations had expired. No one's been prosecuted on this kind of stuff. There was no victim. This is a joke. This is lawfare, and the president addressed it today.
If I did something wrong, I wouldn't be standing here right now, because I've won all these cases. Nobody's ever won so many cases as I have. against the Justice Department. I mean, Jack Smith had cases all over the place. People were being subpoenaed, lives were being ruined. They were spending everything they had, money. We were helping them out. We had to. They were subpoenaing people that had no idea what they were even talking about. That's a sick group of people. And it was all to influence the election. It was all a fight against a political opponent. We've never had that in this country.
You know, look, he covered a lot of subjects. He also talked about Biden giving him a hard time and trying to set up these roadblocks, you know, offshore drilling. And it's stupid because you know that Trump's going to undo it. I don't get the Biden thing. This is the sloppiest way. Like, if I were him, look, I'm not trying to give him any advice, but after the election went by, I would have done all of this left-leaning legacy crap that they do to set him up for his progressive legacy and say, oh, I did all this stuff. I pardoned all these people. This is literally like willy-nilly. I'm going to pardon 1,400 people and not talk about it. I'm going to all these people on death row. I'm going to block Trump from banning, you know, drilling off the coast, but knowing that he can redo it. That there's no setup. This has frankly been the issue with the Biden administration, right? They just do stuff and they don't explain it. This is the problem. So he addressed it today about how Biden is giving him a hard time. Take a look.
We are inheriting a difficult situation from the outgoing administration, and they're trying everything they can to make it more difficult. Inflation is continuing to rage, and interest rates are far too high. And I've been disappointed to see the Biden administration's attempt to block the reforms of the American people and that they voted for. We had a landslide election. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote by millions and millions of people.
Look, I know this sounds silly, but when he talks about putting America first, it's a lot, you know, Greenland, it's jobs, it's whatever, but it's also symbolic stuff. Like, he's talked about changing the names of a lot of things, including bringing back these military bases to reflect the original names. But he even talked about, like, the Gulf of Mexico. Here's what I'm talking about. Take a listen.
We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name. And it's appropriate. It's appropriate.
All right. I mean, America first is America first in all aspects, right? Don't you think that's funny? All right, look, Seb Gorka is coming up. Amazing conversation about the threats that we face and what's happening, right? But I want to point out one more thing, and this is not the last time that I'm going to bring this up, but something fascinating happened. As I watch TV shows, okay, they weave in the MAGA agenda. What do I mean by that? So over the holidays, I see this story about the EPA covering up some of these chemicals that they've known are harmful, and suddenly everyone's blowing the whistle. Well, gosh, that's interesting. Then we hear about all these people, Frank Pallone, the Democrat congressman from New Jersey, and Gavin Newsom, the Democratic governor out there in California, wanting to ban red dye. Wait a second. Why do you want to do that? Only because RFK and the MAGA agenda has put it forward? We've suddenly talked about the dangers of ultra-processed foods. They've been out there since, what, the 80s? Suddenly now? I mean, ABC did the whole story the other day, like, so out of the blue. Ultra-processed foods and how bad they could be for you. They mock the movement, and then suddenly they just slowly slide in these stories as if it's their idea. But here's the beauty of one, and this is what made me really think about the collective nature of this. There's a story yesterday on, I think it was ABC, could have been NBC, or maybe both, to be honest with you, about this new story about fluoride. It came out in the Journal of American Medicine, and it's a big study about linking children's IQ to fluoride. Pregnant women's problems with fluoride. So you mock RFK on this. The Democrats, the media, talk about how he's nut job, fluoride, and how it's so good. And then suddenly they just mainstream the idea. Watch this over and over again. They take these ideas from MAGA, from America First, everything that Trump's saying, and they won't give them credit for it, but they slide it in, suddenly acting like it's their idea and it's normal. The idea that they mocked is now suddenly cool. Normal, backed by science. But a few months ago, it was crazy. It was nuts. This is the people who determine what so many Americans read, see, and hear. This is why shows like this are critical. Telling other people of them are critical. Because this is how they operate. They lie, they spread misinformation. They take no accountability. So, all right, before we get into it with Seb, I want to tell you, if you are overwhelmed with back taxes, unfiled returns, get ready because I've got the solution for you. My friends at Tax Network USA can be your best friend. These are the guys that have recovered over $1 billion for their clients. Okay. They know which IRS agents you can deal with, which ones you should stay away from. These guys are the best in the business. So if you've got unfiled back taxes, you've got a pay up notice from the IRS, it doesn't matter. These guys are so in the know. They've got the expertise like nobody else does. So you got to give them, it doesn't matter if it's personal or business. If you've got problems with taxes, call the folks at Tax Network to schedule a complimentary consultation. It doesn't cost you a single penny, and they're probably going to be able to help you get something back because they've gotten over $1 billion for folks. Give them a call at 1-800-958-1000 or visit them at TN, that's Tax Network, TNUSA.com/Sean Spicer, full name there, TNUSA.com/Sean Spicer. Give them a call at 1-800-958-1000. All right, let's bring in our buddy, the new Senior Director for Counterterrorism at the National Security Council, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Well, Dr. Gorka, good to see you, and congratulations on a great run at Salem Radio. I know it was a blast tuning in and listening to you. You're needed in the country, so I'm sad to see you go, but I'm excited about the next chapter here.
Thank you, buddy. Yes, yesterday was my final program episode of America First after 6 years and 5 days. God bless everyone there. The man who hired me, Phil Boyce, Tom Tradup, the really famous guys, Ed Atzinger, Dave Santrella. But it's been a wild ride. And unlike some people, I've decided to pick up the gauntlet once more and go back into the White House. And it's a sad day yesterday. I showed you the pictures. I was emptying all my bookcases here. I found this very dog-eared copy of some book called The Briefing.
That's valuable now. You know that, right? I mean,
that's like on eBay as soon as we're done.
It's funny. I digress, but I was over the vacation. A guy bumped into me and he said, "Hey, I've loved following you. If I had to pick one book to read," and I went through all four of which I can't believe I've got 4 books to my name. But I said The Briefing's the one that actually still matters. The other ones were very costly. But anyway, I want to get to kind of what you're going to be doing in a minute with respect to counterterrorism and the threats that we face. But I just want to start with this. You and I, you mentioned you going back in. We have a former colleague that we served with on the NSC, and he sent out a series of tweets that I just want you to comment on or explain, because he put out these tweets saying, "Hey, I'm concerned about the structure of the National Security Council," which is what you will be serving on. And the nut of his thread on X, this guy's name is Joshua Steinman, was that there are going to be holdovers, right? And so let's just start with this. When you take us back for a second, when you started, and I know, were you on the NSC in Bush's first term? I know what you did, but I can't remember exactly.
So it was a little bit unusual because I'd spent the whole transition period working for Mike Flynn as the incoming National Security Advisor, expecting to do counterterrorism for him, and doping out on. I can still see it in Old Town Alexandria in his offices on a whiteboard with his son Mike, just doping out the structure of the new National Security Council, who we're going to fire, who we're going to bring in. And then, literally 8 days before the inauguration, some guy called Steve Bannon, who knew me from Breitbart, said, "You're not working for Flynn, you're working for me. We're putting this little think tank," which was an amazing idea, this little long-range think tank, the Strategic Initiatives Group, right next to the president, right there next to the chief of staff's office. And we're going to do the big, not the operational day-to-day of the quote-unquote interagency. We're going to do the heavy lifting on China, Iran, energy for the next 10, 20 years. Great idea. However, because I was in that billet and I had, TSSCI, I was on the NSC roster and I went to the NSC meetings until H.R. McMaster arrived. And then I be walking around the EEOB or the West Wing, and somebody say, "Hey, Seb, I didn't see you on the secure video teleconference in the sit room yesterday on China." And I said, "What meeting on China in the sit room?" And I realized I was being blocked out by H.R. McMaster, who wasn't exactly the most MAGA national security advisor. And very soon after that, I resigned and left the White House. So yeah, I am very familiar with the NSC back then, and with Josh Steinman, who's a great patriot.
Okay, so let me just start with this. When you were there initially, give us a sense of like how many people are on the staff and how many people were held over from Obama to Trump. I mean, roughly. I'm not asking for a specific.
So when we came in, it was an absolute abortion. It was 420 people in just the NSC. I mean, it was lunacy. Let me put it in perspective, okay? When Ronald Reagan was, winning the Cold War, he had 75 people in the NSC. Eisenhower, at the height of Suez, the Hungarian Revolution, had 25 people in the National Security Council. Obama created this basic, mini-me of government. He brought everyone from the State Department, CIA, DOD, Department of Energy, Environment, to the White House to replicate the government. And one of the jobs Steve Bannon had was to come in and slash and burn to get it down to a manageable size. And I haven't counted all of them. I had my meeting on Friday with my Biden White House counterpart, which was interesting. But I have been told that the current National Security Council under Biden has ballooned again to more than 400 people, Shawn.
Okay, so roughly how many did you guys hold over in Trump from Obama? 100, 200, 300?
As somebody who wasn't in the NSC and only went to the highest level meetings, the most accurate answer I can give you is too many. And
Okay.
Look, can I tell you a story about Mike Flynn that explains to you what happened to the good intentions? So we were 4 days in or 3 days in, and Mike's the new national security advisor. And the Washington Post has leaked to it the new National Security Council phone book. Now, it's not a big deal. These aren't the nuclear launch codes, but the identities of at least the senior directors and the deputies are very sensitive in certain directorates, like intelligence or counterterrorism. And the new guys we'd put in, their names were like plastered all over the Washington Post. And I wasn't working for Mike because I was working for Steve, but I considered Mike to be a friend, and he is the national security advisor. And I went to him and I said, "Mike, we're like less than a week in, and the Washington Post has the new classified NSC phone book that you haven't even signed off on." And I told him, "Sir, recommendation, Mike, you need to order every polygrapher from DOJ to the EEOB Eisenhower building, start with me, and polygraph every stinking person in the building until you find the guy who gave it to the Washington Post, have the marshals put cuffs on them, and walk them in front of the cameras of the White House." And he said to me, "Seb, great idea, can't rock the boat." And like 4 days later, he's fired. So we're not going to make that mistake again. You asked me about that thread. So let me.
Well, and just so viewers get it, the thread was that there are potentially going to be too many holdovers that are going to resist President Trump's agenda.
Right. So let me preface this with the fact that Josh Steinman is a genius. He's MAGA. He's a patriot. He survived, and this is why he bears listening to. He survived for 4 years as the senior director of cyber in the first Trump administration. So he knows the deep state. And I said this to him after I saw this tweet storm. I said, "Josh, you don't have the whole story. We are fully aware of the threat of holdovers. And I'm not going to go into details because you don't tell the deep state what you're doing. But Mike Waltz, Alex Wong, the deputy national security advisor, the incoming chief of staff, they have a plan and they're working it. So relax when it comes to the people who are inside the directorates. There's a bigger issue, and you could talk about this, for hours. And it's the civil servants in the White House. And I'll tell you another story about me. I was given a classified job to do in the very beginning of the Trump administration. And even if you're a deputy assistant to the president, you're super high, whatever, not like you, but it's a big deal. But I'm only one guy. So I needed to have people to work this project for me. And I'd spent the previous, 12 years training the US military and National Defense University, teaching at Georgetown. I had literally thousands of people who I'd trained in the intelligence community, law enforcement, and the military. So I did you know what this is, a by name request through the NSC Resource Management Division. That's the equivalent of HR. Because I said, look, there are three guys at the FBI who I trained, who are genius on this issue, and a gal at the CIA, and I want them detailed to me at the SIG for a year to work on this classified issue. The head of RM, the head of HR said, oh, Dr. G, not a problem, just have to move their clearances into the scattered castle system, and they'll be here in a week. For 6 months, Shawn, nothing happened. And I go to the head of NSC Resource Management, hey, where are my guys? And she said, oh, just dotting the I's, crossing the T's. This went on until, I had to leave the White House. And people like her are still in the building. So that's, I think, the part of the picture that Josh missed and is very serious. But let me assure you that with people like me coming in, and Mike coming in, and Alex coming in, and I had President Trump on my show yesterday, my last ever show. He opened the show. We're not going to make those mistakes, if I can leave it at that.
All right, guys, I hate to interrupt this conversation with Seb, but of all people, he should understand because it's about him, right? Look at how good Seb's, you can see it in his face. He looks fantastic. I saw a clip of him the other day, and like 2 years ago, very different because he's done a great job. And when he looked as good as he did, and I asked him, I said, Seb, what are you doing? He said, I hooked up with the folks at myphdweightloss.com, and they helped me put a new spin on my life because it's not a diet, it's not a fad. They literally sit down with you every week. You meet with a consultant who's a nutritionist, and they talk about your life, what you're eating, when you're eating it, how to eat better. They supply you with some food off the bat. I'm telling you guys, I've tried every fad diet in the world over the last 20 years. I've seen everything come and go. The folks at My PhD Weight Loss literally create a plan that's tailored to you, talks to you about when you can eat, how you can do this better, but it also helps you get the weight down and then manage it in a way that no one else has ever been able to do. I'm down several pounds. I was able to maintain during the holidays because there's a degree of accountability, let's be honest, that you get with them. So try giving them a call if this is part of your New Year's resolution. Talk to the folks at My PhD Weight Loss at 1-864-644-1900, or better yet, go to myphdweightloss.com. That's just one thing, myphdweightloss.com. Make this part of your New Year's resolution, not a diet, a change in lifestyle. All right. If you are the person that is running your company, or you're the person in charge of finances, I don't care if you have 5 or 5,000 employees, it doesn't matter. You got to check out Ramp. Now, this is what a Ramp card looks like, right? On the one side, it says Visa. There's no numbers there because I'm not that stupid. I'm not going to give you my Ramp card. But a Ramp card is essential to saving you time and money if you're the person in charge of employee expenses. It is a software management company that is a total game changer for so many companies. We had a guest on, I think I've told you guys this before, who said to me off air after the show that he switched over and it was amazing. It puts time and money back in your pocket. They can set up virtual and physical cards. So you can literally start today if you go to ramp.com/Spicer and sign up. Plus, guess what? You get $250, $250 just for signing up. How smart is that? This thing literally organizes. You're not chasing around receipts anymore. It puts everything in an easy to use manner. And it's like I said, you will change everything. You're not going to run around collecting and categorizing receipts. Your employees don't have to chase them down. You don't have to worry. You can set expense limits and everything. Trust me. So go to ramp.com/Spicer, ramp.com/Spicer. Cards are issued by Sutton and Celtic Bank, members FDIC, terms and conditions apply. All right, back to the conversation with Seb. I want to move on to kind of the threats that we face.
Yeah.
The first is on this issue in Vegas in front of the Trump Hotel. I listened to the Shawn Ryan interview the other day. I see you shaking your head. Tell me why. Why is this not concerning?
Well, it is, but it's not gravitic propulsion systems from the planet Zarquan. I mean, seriously, when the guy who has a bad reputation anyway for forging stuff on his own show comes on one of the biggest podcasts out there with a former special operator, and he uses the phrase gravitic propulsion, that if you look up on Google has only ever been used in a Star Wars movie, you probably shouldn't talk about real threats like the drones and mix them in with, X-Files meets the Twilight Zone. And I reached out to Shawn. I said, Shawn, dude, let me help you. I'm a private citizen for the next, 2 weeks. Happy to come on your show. And the guy was like, sorry, I'm good, thanks. Okay, so clicks, I guess, are more important than the truth. But we've seen this.
So the bottom line is we don't need to, there's just a lot that was thrown into the ether with that interview. I mean, that guy, what's his name? Matt Livensberger, who was the guy that blew himself up, has this manifesto out there where he talks about knowledge of programs and war crimes. You don't think any of this is legit?
No. I mean, look, like any good story that you want to spin up, it takes a little bit of the truth and then he blows it up and mixes it up. I mean, the idea, look, the best response to this is Ryan Macbeth. Ryan Macbeth on YouTube is one of the smartest guys out there, 22 years, heavy weapons guy, cross-trained with cyber, worked with the IC, knows about drones. And he made this one point. What did he say? In 2019, we bombed hundreds of houses in Afghanistan. We didn't do that. You'd have to go back to 2002. What are you talking about? Hundreds in one night? It's just fallacious. You can't be committing war crimes with thousands of people during the Trump administration when we were drawing down and the footprint was shrinking. So this idea that war crimes, China, anti-gravity, it's either, look, the best explanation, and I don't want to get out in front of things here, but I've been given certain briefings. If you look at the facts of the case, if you look at the guy's marital history, if you look at PTSD in general, as one of my friend's fathers said, what Vegas looks like is an exquisite suicide. It's a call for help. You don't use fireworks and jerry cans as a Green Beret if you want to kill a lot of people. Green Berets know how to kill a lot of people with a very small amount of munitions. You're making a statement. And again, I'm a gun guy. I'm sorry, I've got 3 Desert Eagles. Desert Eagles are not what terrorists use to kill people, right? It's what Arnold Schwarzenegger says, I'll be back with in the Hollywood movies. But it's a $3,000 gun if it's, one of the custom ones. Here, I think he had a titanium coated one. It's extravagant. It's flamboyant. It's not jihad. The real threat is New Orleans, and I'm happy to talk about that.
Okay, so let's talk. Well, actually, before we do that, I want to get to New Orleans, but you mentioned drones. Before Christmas, everybody was talking about drones in New Jersey, and suddenly we stopped talking about drones. Why? What is the problem gone? Is it what? It seems like suddenly a switch got flipped and we stopped talking about drones.
Well, because I think, look, the president's press conference at Mar-a-Lago was so very, very telling.
The government knows what is happening. Look, our military knows where they took off from. If it's a garage, they can go right into that garage. They know where it came from and where it went.
I mean, he so walks the line because he's getting the presidential daily intel briefing. He admitted to having been briefed on the issue, and he was blunt. He said, "This isn't, the enemy coming to get you." I can't say more than that. But if this were gravitic propulsion from Mars or the Chinese invasion, I think President Trump's answer would have been a little bit different because he cares about America. So as a caller to Chris Plant's show pointed out, in the midst of the, oh my gosh, they're invading, go to the summer of 2023 and flying.com magazine. And there's this long article in flying.com about how the FAA, the DOD, and the governors of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York have approved a special drone testing corridor above their 3 states.
That's fine, but then why wasn't that just said? Why can't someone say, "Hey, there's a drone testing corridor"?
Why is the FBI agent in charge at the press briefing after New Orleans wearing a nose ring in contravention of FBI regulations? Gross incompetence. And I would probably guess there are aspects of this testing that are sensitive, and people didn't want to be, oh, this is us, this is Skunk Works, or this is whatever testing.
Sure, fair enough. But not one official has said, hey, we're not going to get into the details, but we know what we're doing, and it's okay. Instead, they kind of let everyone get all ginned up.
This is the same administration who said after 13 servicemen and women were murdered by ISIS in Kabul that they're proud of how we exited Afghanistan. Lloyd Austin said, we are proud of this operation. I don't expect any acts of honor or competence from an administration that isn't willing to go to Arlington Cemetery for the 3rd anniversary of the killed in Kabul. This is who they are.
The bottom line is, so bottom line, with respect to drones, you're saying that we don't need to be worried about what we've seen over New Jersey.
Look, I haven't been read into that. My open source estimation is it's not enemy agency involved. However, I will say the following. The fact that more than 80%, and this is unclassified, of the drones in use by the 17,000 law enforcement agencies in America are made in China is a big deal.
Okay. All right, so let's get to China, but I want to,
this is why the Ryan Shawn thing is so dangerous, right? Because you take real issues like PTSD suicides by our warfighters, Chinese drones being used by US law enforcement, and you mix it up with absolute BS garbage about, anti-gravity propulsion and, war crimes committed by our own warfighters. And you just do it for clicks. And this is one of the reasons that, I do what I do, because let's have some critical thinking. And it's like Dan Bongino's thing on his radio, the Bongino rule. I never comment about a news story for the first 72 hours because it turns out that most of the original stuff is spin.
Right. Yeah. No, I get it. All right. So before we head over to China, tell me about what do we need to do? What's the takeaway from New Orleans? Because I will just say off the top of my head, I'll use the word that you just used about some of the feds, which is incompetence. The New Orleans chief didn't seem to even know that they had a barricade system that wasn't up. I don't, everyone keeps asking, what should we do? And my answer is use your head, use common sense. I'm not sure you can prevent stupidity and people doing evil, but you can do the basics.
Yeah, so I've been saying this since I wrote my first book, Defeating Jihad, 10 years ago. If you don't believe you're on the front line on the war with jihadis, you're living in a fantasy land. I mean, it's Christmas parties in San Bernardino as you're being slain by your Muslim colleagues. It's dance parties at that dance school in England where 3 beautiful little girls were knifed to death by a jihadi in the middle of their Britney Spears dance class. The second you step out of your home, I mean, that's why I'm always carrying a weapon, right? I'm licensed to carry in DC, Virginia, Maryland. I don't leave my home unless I'm packing. Why? Because, why do I carry a gun? As the old joke goes, because the law enforcement officer is too heavy. You are on the front line of this war because jihadis don't respect front line. So at the end of my show for 6 years, the last thing I said is keep your head on a swivel, watch your 6, and stay frosty. As a man, you are responsible for not only your own safety, but the safety of your loved ones and the people around you. You wear the cloth of the Republic. You understand that. If something looks wrong, it probably is. If somebody who's not wearing, emblazoned with a Coca-Cola or Bud Light, insignia, an overall, and he's walking around New Orleans, leaving coolers in the midst of Bourbon Street and walking away from the coolers, that ain't right. And we've got the footage now of Jabbar doing exactly that with IEDs. So number one, be aware of your situation, be tactically aware. And number two, the president nailed it. And it is about open borders. This guy may have been born and raised in Texas, but it's utterly irrelevant. What Stephen Miller said right after is on the money. Jihadi ideology is not indigenous to America. It didn't, grow out of the ground of Texas or Maryland. It is imported to this nation. We now know that Jabbar visited Egypt last year. He went to Canada after he went to Egypt. Who did he meet there? I've been studying this for 25 years. Before an effective jihadi operation occurs, the last thing before they swear bayat publicly, which is what he did, he swore allegiance to ISIS just before he went operational, is they get approval. They get the blessing of a jihadi imam. Was that in Egypt, the birthplace of the Muslim Brotherhood? Was it in a radical mosque in Canada? As soon as Kash Patel takes over, we will know. But the threat is real. And I can't tell you what I was briefed on in the NSC, but do the math. If you're, you know what red teaming is. For the last 10 years, every US service has a red teaming MOS. Next to the theater commander, there will be a major, a colonel who is hatted as a red team expert to think like the enemy. If you're in CENTCOM, you're thinking like ISIS and AQ. If you're in PACOM, you're thinking like China. If you think pretend you're a jihadi mastermind right now. And 4 years ago, the Biden administration says, oh, that wall is stupid. Let's dismantle the wall. Everyone can download the CBP One app and clear themselves into the country as an asylum seeker. If you're Hezbollah, Hamas, Al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, ISIS-K, if you're a cartel member, if you're a North Korean spy, you are going to insert yourself into the 8 million illegals we know they have let into this country. So we will have a lot of work to do at 12:01 on January the 20th, but with Kash, with Mike Waltz, with Governor Noem, with John Radcliffe, we have the right people. And Tom Homan. Is there anyone better than Tom Homan to secure our border?
Let me ask you this. I got two more quick things to run by you. One, based on everything you just said, it seems to me that for all of these reasons, we need to ban TikTok or ensure that China doesn't own it.
Yeah. Look, I will be making my recommendations. The president used it very skillfully for political purposes to take back America and win the election. But TikTok is a tool for data harvesting by the CCP, our number one strategic threat. Jihadism is a big deal. But the number one nation-state long-term strategic threat to America is the communist nation that has declared by the 100th anniversary of their revolution in 2048, they wish to be the only superpower in the world. So, yeah, you look at, I think you're referring to this article probably, that surveys of TikTok users, vice non-TikTok users, when it comes to issues like open borders, like Hamas, October the 7th, they are far more, if you're a TikTok user, you are far more likely to be soft on Beijing, soft on border walls. There's a reason that propaganda is being exploited on electronic platforms.
Yeah. Last question I have for you. In light of New Orleans, in light of what we saw in Vegas, in light of what is the greatest threat that you think that we are going to face over the next 4 years?
Wow. In my portfolio, it's two things. It's identifying, neutralizing, and removing the jihadis who we know have come into this country. The terror threat list watch numbers are unclassified. You can see them. Externally, it's the recrudescence of the global jihadi movement, especially in Afghanistan with ISIS-K after Biden's surrender of Afghanistan, and then the potential exploitation of Syria. That's for me the two baskets. In terms of grand strategy beyond my portfolio, the things that Colonel Waltz and the president will also have to deal with. I'm sorry, it's China. I learned this.
Don't be sorry. It is China.
It is China.
And there's nothing to be sorry for. I'm glad you said that, because I think the more people, we've taken our eye off the ball for too long, and people like you that can say, here is the threat. is what's needed. We need to our government back focused on the real threat.
Well, and look, I learned this the hard way. I came into the White House 8 years ago thinking, look, I'm a CT guy. I love strategy, but I'm a CT guy, and I'm going to do CT. Once you get the clearances, once you read the president's daily briefing, I mean, it took me about 2 weeks to realize, no, we'll deal with ISIS, which we did. We'll deal with Al-Qaeda, which we did. China. And I didn't think the president could turn America around. He did. I mean, he turned even Palo Alto around within the space of 2 years. And, that's thanks to Peter Navarro, who's coming back, thanks to, great people like Ambassador Lighthizer. So this is going to be Trump 2.0. The threat we're inheriting is even bigger, but we have the team, Shawn. And
good.
You should be there too.
I got to stay on the outside. It's a security thing. It's like Michael and Janet Jackson. You could only have one in the, you went in.
Continuity of MAGA, right? Continuity of government, continuity of MAGA.
Exactly. There you go. Well, I appreciate you, the senior incoming director of counterterrorism at the National Security Council, and now former host of America First on Salem News Channel. I'm sure there'll be a place for you when you're ready to come back out. Always appreciate your time, your counsel, your insights. And I wish you the best, and I hope that you will continue to come on the show once you're officially back in the role.
Or I'll see you in the Navy mess, Commander.
Hey, I'll take that every day of the week. I'll make sure I sign on the bottom, Gorka. I will be there. You name the day. I look forward to the lunch invitation. Thank you for it. Greatly appreciated. Anyway,
go out there and buy the briefing.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
God bless.
All right, guys, what a great conversation with him. Tomorrow, Congressman Derek Van Orden, former Navy SEAL, talking about where the House is on its MAGA America First agenda. Great panel on Thursday. And on Friday, we're talking UFOs with Matt Laszlo. What a week we've got planned for you. Remember, my newsletter drives today. Go to SeanSpicer.com to sign up for free. Get all the information on the inauguration. I appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 6 on The Shawn Spicer Show.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.